in a position where we can gain a ton of life, draw a ton of cards, and put a bunch of power on the board, which, if done unimpeded for a period of time, will put us in a position where we can just knock everyone out of the game. Building a commander deck as a new player can be quite a daunting task. There's so many different things to be aware of. There's so many different cards you can place inside your own commander deck. So what are the things that are particular that you need to know when building a dragon commander deck? In today's video, we're going to be going over this Dragon commander deck. What we're going to be doing is talking about some of the things you need to be aware of when playing as dragons in Commander in general, so that you can build a better dragon commander deck. So if you're a player that's new to Magic the Gathering and want to get better at Magic now, I highly suggest that you subscribe to this YouTube channel. So we always start these videos off by going over the commander first, and the commander for this deck is the Dragon. The Dragon is a 9 mana costing creature, so he does take a while to get into the game. He also has an ability called Eminence, which allows you to cast your dragons for 1 less mana. He also says that when dragons you control attack, you're going to draw a card for each dragon that's attacking, as well as placing 1 permanent from your hand onto the battlefield for free. Now, what are some of the weaknesses when it comes to playing dragons in Commander? Dragons tend to cost a lot of mana. So when we look at this commander deck over here, a lot of the dragons that we have tend to cost 5, 6, 7 mana to get into the game. And a lot of these dragons have very powerful abilities. They're flying, so they are evasive, and they tend to do a lot of damage as well. So they're kind of worth the cost, but 8 mana to play a dragon tends to be a lot. And because of that, the deck tends to play slow. And when the deck plays slow and people know that you're playing dragons, they're gonna target you the moment the game starts, just to remove you from the game as quickly as possible so that they can stay in the game. So how should a new player respond to this reality when playing dragons? When we take a look at the cards that we have chosen for the commander deck over here, it's important to notice the mana value of the dragons that we have. Remembering that the Dragon always reduces the cost of every dragon that we play. So essentially we have one 3-drop dragon over here. This actually costs 2 mana to play, just 2 red mana. We also have Archwing Dragon over here, which we're gonna end up talking about a little bit later. That does cost 3 mana to play. We have a Dragonborn Champion, which costs 3 mana, 3 mana, and 3 mana. The idea is that we take as many 4-drop or even 5-drop dragons, which are technically 4 drops because of the Dragon. We play all of these dragons so that at least by turn 4, we get a 5/5 or a 4/4 or some sort of big dragon onto the battlefield that's going to allow us to protect our life total. We use these dragons defensively so that we can maintain our life total and wait for the opportune time to go ahead and attack our opponents with our creatures once it's safe for us to do so, because we are playing Commander, which is a 4-player game, which can put us in a position where all 3 of our opponents are attacking us at one time, and that's a really easy way to lose a game of Commander. What's gonna happen if you start the game early and your opponents decide that they want to start destroying your dragons immediately? A really important part of playing this commander deck is also knowing that we have to protect our dragons while they're in the game. And what I've learned for me that works best when I play this commander deck is to go ahead and protect my dragons with cards that exile my dragons and then have them enter the battlefield again, like Semester's End. This will have my dragons leave the battlefield and then re-enter when they're targeted with removal. Same thing with Turn to Mist. Same thing with Momentary Blink, which we can use twice. Flicker of Fate. Rootborn Defenses gives our creatures indestructible, which will let them survive a board wipe, as well as this Unbreakable Formation, which if we cast during our main phase can give our dragons vigilance until the end of turn, which essentially allows us to attack our opponents without having to tap our dragons so that we can still protect our life total afterwards. It's a really nice way to just knock somebody out of the game. Now, while we're having our dragons leave the battlefield and re-enter the battlefield while we're protecting them, we need ways to gain advantage while we're doing things like that. So what we're going to take a look at over here are these cards that trigger when creatures enter the battlefield. This card over here allows us to draw cards when a non-token creature enters the battlefield. We also have Kiora Behemoth Beckoner, which allows us to draw a card when the creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield. This same thing will have us draw a card. This will have us draw a card. This we can tap to have us draw a card. This will allow us to draw cards equal to the power. Both of these cards will allow us to draw cards equal to the power of a creature we control, which our commander, mind you, is 10 power. And because our commander is 10 power, we get to draw 10 cards with those cards. Reducing the cost of our dragons by 1 is nice, but I also think it's kind of important to make sure that we play cards that still do the same thing that's not our commander. So we're also playing cards like Shadow in the Warp, which reduces the first creature spell we cast each turn by 2. And then we're also going to be playing Herald's Horn, which reduces the cost by 1 and gives us the potential to draw a card in the future. In spite of everything that we just went over and talked about, I'm going to tell you right now, your opponents are still going to deal a ton of damage to you. It's incredibly common for me to play this commander deck and to get down to 5, 8, 10 health. How do we recover from being at such a low life total? In this deck, we play these 2 cards, and these 2 cards are probably the most important cards inside the entire deck. We have an Archon of Redemption, and then we also have an Angelic Chorus. Both of these cards allow us to gain life equal to the toughness of a creature that enters the battlefield. Remember that we're having a lot of creatures leave the battlefield and then re-enter the battlefield, so that these cards technically tend to gain us 20, 30, 40, 50 life at a time, depending on the board state that we have. A really simple yet powerful combo that we have inside this commander deck is between Lathliss, the Dragon Queen, and the Archwing Dragon. Lathliss says that whenever another non-token dragon enters the battlefield under your control, we create a 5/5 red dragon. Archwing Dragon also says that at the beginning of our end step, when this is in play, we return the Archwing Dragon back to our hand. So between these 2 cards, every turn we get to replay the Archwing Dragon just for 3 mana, which is then going to allow us to continue to create a 5/5 dragon with our Lathliss. And in combination with the card draw that we have over here as creatures enter the battlefield and the life gain that we have over here between these 2 cards, it puts us in a position where we can gain a ton of life, draw a ton of cards, and put a bunch of power on the board, which, if done unimpeded for a period of time, will put us in a position where we can just knock everyone out of the game. Now, some of the cards that are not necessarily associated with what we went over, but are still really good, and these cards tend to work extremely well inside Dragon decks. If you're running a Dragon deck, I highly suggest that you run these cards. So we have a Dragon Tempest, which is going to give our dragons haste and allow us to deal damage as our dragons enter the battlefield. We also have a Descendant's Path, which says at the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card that shares a creature type with a creature you control, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Dude, that goes off. This card is good. We also have a Bower Passage, which says creatures with flying can't block creatures you control, which is going to make our dragons unblockable. We also have Brave the Sands. I really like this card, guys. Creatures you control have vigilance, which allows our dragons to block, and then each creature you control can block an additional creature. This card really keeps you in the game, guys. Really powerful enchantment here, probably like 25 cents. And then we have Sarkhan's Unsealing, which says whenever you cast a creature spell with power 4, 5, or 6, this is going to deal 4 damage to any target. So this is just a really good way for us to be able to control the board state while we're casting our dragons for cheaper mana than they normally would with cards like Shadow in the Warp and our commander. Because dragons tend to cost a lot of mana, we tend to win games with dragons late. So the longer we stay in the game as a dragon player, the more likely it is that we're going to win the game at the end of the game. So gaining life, drawing cards, and playing dragons early are things that are always going to be able to keep you in the game as a dragon player. So if you're a player that's brand new to Magic the Gathering and want to get better at playing Commander, go ahead and subscribe to this YouTube channel, and I guarantee that you're going to be a better player than you were yesterday. Keep in mind that we also do have a Discord, and inside that Discord we have tons of deck lists there. So if you're looking for any ideas for how to build a Commander deck, there are tons of resources that you can use over there and people that you can talk with about building Commander decks, as well as myself. Whenever we end these videos, I always say the same thing. Always remember, eat healthy, okay? Work out every single day, all right? And most importantly, you gotta remember to believe in yourself, all right? Peace out, people.